Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Rick Ingraham Talks to Strangers. And now, here's your host, Rick Ingraham.
Hi guys, welcome back to Rick Ingraham Talks to Strangers. We're having a good time already. I wish you guys could have seen and heard what we've been talking about because it was all great. And it's going to be hard to live up to it, honestly. There's a lot of compliments towards me from the people in the booth, which was nice. Yeah, how are you guys? Welcome back. I don't know if we missed any weeks. I got COVID. I don't want to blame anyone in particular, but it was 100% the mouth breathers in the original room here at the world-famous Comedy Store. If you see someone breathing through their mouth, hit them in the face. That's a new rule. Like, what I learned from my COVID experience was that I had to add 5 or 6 things to my list of reasons why it should be okay to murder. And most of them just revolve around human beings and why they're terrible. Luckily, we got a good one here tonight. I can already tell. Our pregame chat let me know that things are going in the right direction. This is Patrick Reeder. What's your middle name, Patrick?
Donovan.
Wow. I was going to say Patrick Reeder, that could go serial killer or mass shooter, but Donovan throws it for a loop. Now you just sound like an artist of some sort.
I don't
Patrick
know.
Donovan Reeder?
I kind of Patrick Donovan Reeder. I kind of assumed it was based somehow on the singer. It's not. It's just a name my mom liked.
Donovan.
Yeah.
She just liked it.
Right. And the Patrick, I mean, people have always assumed I'm Irish. I am not Irish.
Reeder leads me to believe German.
That's right. Yeah. Which is funny because it's, my dad's last name. He always thought he was Welsh. And they did like the DNA thing.
Right.
And we're mutts. I mean, it's like, my parents are super interested in it. I have no interest really, but yeah, we're just from all over the place. There's
What's the weirdest percent you got? Was there like a certain place where you guys were just like, really? Wow.
There was some like
Yugoslavian.
Well, I think like almost everybody. Where there was some like Asian in there because
okay.
I think because which I've heard is Genghis Khan. Like
sure.
Genghis Khan
That's always the rumor because he was out there seeding, soiling his royal oats, if you will.
Right. So I think there's some of that in there. There was some Jewish in there. There was all kinds of stuff in there, but not nearly as much Welsh as we had been led to believe based on my dad's stories about being Welsh. And then my mom thought she was 100% German. She is not.
She's not.
No. But her parents spoke German. But yeah.
So they were living the life?
Yeah. The one thing I'm not is Irish, which just by being Patrick.
You might be the only person in America at this point who's not at least partially Irish.
I guess so, yeah.
I mean, you got the Genghis Khan seed, but usually there's like one Seamus, at least 10 generations back.
I mean, there might be, let me backtrack. I might be a little bit, I don't remember if there's Irish
There's
or not.
Not a significant
Not
portion.
enough for me to be named Patrick.
Right.
That's the thing. But the name Patrick, it's got nothing to do with Ireland or anything like that. It's actually, my mom wanted to name me after my grandfather on her side.
Okay.
Who was called Pat by everybody, but his actual name was Reinhold. He was a German guy, and so his name was Reinhold. Reinhold.
Which is a solid name.
It's a solid name, man.
Reinhold Reeder might have been
Reinhold Sauer. He was Reinhold Sauer, and he which was trippy because he was in the D-Day invasion in Normandy.
Which side was he on?
He was on our side.
Thank God.
He was on our side.
You never know. I don't want someone coming on here and just bragging about all the Americans their grandfather shot. All right, so that's good. On the right side of history.
Camp. Yeah, no, he did. But it was, he never talked about it. But my cousin got him to sit down once and talk about it.
Yeah,
he was a medic, which meant that he didn't have a gun. So he's like, imagine the scene in Saving Private Ryan, running in there without a gun. That was my grandfather. Apparently,
he's got a backpack full of gauze.
Yeah, exactly. Right, bandages,
some morphine. Whatever that packet of McDonald's salt that they always showed him pouring in wounds. It's probably not salt.
Who knows?
But wow, okay, that's impressive.
Yeah, so we did that, and my cousin got him to sit down once and tell the whole story. It was just harrowing. I mean, it was just wow. I couldn't believe it. But
my grandfather fought in Korea, and he died when I was in the 3rd grade. But he was a disturbing enough human being that he did share some. I don't know how to describe them other than racist stories with me as like a 2nd grader where I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So Grandpa is an odd duck, to say the least.
Yeah, I don't want to, defile the memories of either one of my grandparents, but there was a little bit.
Everyone's grandparents. That's just the way it was.
I'm not going to say which grandparent it was on which side or anything like that, but there was one grandparent. This is how I learned when I was a kid. They almost never said anything racist whatsoever, but when I was a kid, remember we started getting like Martin Luther King Day off as a holiday?
Right.
So we go over to...
I like where this is going already.
Yeah. So we go over... would go over to the house for on that Monday, and they're like, "Why aren't you at school?" Yeah, "It's Martin Luther King Day." "What? That man was nothing but a troublemaker."
Wow.
Oh, okay. Note
I
to
mean,
self.
even if that's the case, it's
About
a
the
day
only
off.
thing I ever said, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a day off. That's really the most important thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming that if it's a different grandparent than the D-Day grandparent, then, you know, you get a little bit of everything and it all averages out somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's the fact that your dad felt he was Welsh. Did he have pride in that?
He did, yeah.
See, that's weird to me. I've never met a Welsh person who was like super enthused about being, because from what I've understand, and this is 100% solely from talking to English people, but Welsh people, it's basically the Arkansas of Great Britain.
Right.
There's a lot of
Very rural.
farm types, a lot of sheep shagging, that kind of
That's the story.
that
yeah.
vibe.
Yeah.
They're the New Zealand of
I think my dad was under the impression that there wasn't a lot of jokes about the Welsh. I just don't think he'd heard them.
Yeah, he
they're out
didn't
there.
know.
They're out there.
He wasn't aware. All you got to do is talk to an English person about the other British countries. It's
Right.
pretty exciting.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, you guys still think you're amazing.
Right. Exactly.
I don't respect any country that peaked before the 1800s.
Yeah.
And that's why Britain always going to be on my outs. That's just how I judge it. What were the highest percentages for your family?
They were definitely. I mean, they were definitely like German.
Yeah.
Some French in there. What are the other ones on there? I think there was some Scottish. There was some English in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was kind of just all over Europe. Was primarily.
Yeah, mine was all basically Northern Europe and
Yeah.
and British Isles.
Right.
There's
right.
a lot of British, a lot of Scandinavian. My grandma
Did you
was.
find it interesting though? Because I honestly
didn't.
don't find it interesting.
No,
I just don't. I don't know.
We took the information, whatever it is, and we put it into another genetic website, my wife and I, and that one told you stuff that I found more interesting, where it's like, you probably, caffeine won't affect you very much.
Okay.
And like, so it's like stuff like that, and then it's
Right.
like diseases, things like that. But the caffeine thing, I'm like, that explains a lot, because I
Yeah.
can drink like 7-8 cups of coffee a day and
Yeah.
still go to bed
I
as
drink
soon
a
as I
lot of
want to.
caffeine as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know.
That stuff's more interesting to me than what shitty part of Europe my ancestors
I don't know
came
what it
from.
says about me, but I was way more interested in. They actually have these same tests for cats, and we've got a
Okay.
couple of cats.
Yeah,
my
I'm
brother and
listening.
Sister, and I didn't actually do it, but I was like, I was trying to figure out what kind of cats these were because we just adopted them and no idea what they were.
Yeah.
And so I started like researching based on what they look like. And I'm like, I think they're this. I think they're Turkish Vans. I don't know for sure, but I was like,
You know how to
found out
party.
there
That's
actually
what
is.
I'm
I'm like,
learning.
I almost bought the test. I'm like, I'm way more interested in where my cat came from than
Yeah.
me.
My buddy, they adopted a dog from somewhere, and it's clearly a mix of a lot of things. And I'd
Yeah.
always go, what do you think? What do you think he's a mix of? And he'd go, I don't know, German Pinscher and a bunch of other stuff. I'm like, German Pinscher? I'm like looking at it like, it looks like it's part Chihuahua to me.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, he got the genetic thing done. No German Pinscher whatsoever. It was like it had like 7 or 8 different breeds of dog in it. We're like, all right, so it's like 4 types of terrier and
Right.
9% rat.
Yeah. Do you
No.
like dogs? You're a dog guy?
Yeah, my dog died less than a year ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
But-
My cat died unexpectedly last year. Yeah, it's rough.
What did you find out what caused it?
He had an enlarged heart. The cat, which I guess is a
Terrible
thing that
plan.
happens. It was a bummer. He was only 6 years old.
Wow.
Just kind of fell down literally fell down the stairs like a bowling ball. He was a huge cat. He was like 15 pounds. So, and
We had a very fat cat growing up named Mr. Huggins, and his belly got so big that his fur would actually touch the floor when he walked.
yeah.
So if he like walked through dirt, it looked like a snake or some sort.
That's pretty cool.
Great cat.
Yeah.
And then as he got older, I went to college and he stayed living with my parents, obviously. And as he got old, he got really skinny, and it was
Yeah.
really weird seeing him. He started looking. We started calling him Stega Kitty because
Oh, okay.
his spine started. I don't even know how to describe it other than it looked monstrous.
Yeah.
But doctor was like, "No, he's good. He doesn't feel any pain." I'm like, "Are you sure?" I think we're torturing the cat.
Yeah.
So one of the interesting things I see here is that You caught 2 foul balls at the same Dodgers game.
I did. This is about 1996 or so.
Okay.
We went to go see the Dodgers and Rockies at Dodger Stadium, and I had gone to a lot of Dodger games as a kid, but it just, we just had.
You're an LA
just went
local.
a lot. I grew up in the Inland Empire.
Okay.
So I grew up like in the Arkansas of California.
Sure.
So, yeah.
I'm familiar.
Yeah.
I used to do shows at a spaghetti place out in Corona.
Which one?
I couldn't tell you. It's been so long. But they used to, it would be like, yeah, we'll pay you in dinner. And I was so poor. I'm like, dude, I can get a giant Italian dinner.
Yeah.
And so it was worth the 2.5-hour drive to do 20 minutes of comedy for like 7 people who did not want to see comedy.
It's funny. My parents, I kind of have given them a hard time with this before. My mom is originally from North Dakota. They moved out here when she was 4.
Okay.
My dad's from Pennsylvania. His family moved out here when he was 13. They moved from those states all the way down here, and they stopped in San Bernardino.
Yeah, it's, I mean.
What? 60 more miles. You could have been living at the beach.
They're
What's
like,
wrong?
we are looking for the rural vibe.
I guess.
In
I
a
don't
major
know.
metropolitan area surrounded by 16 million
The
humans.
story I was told is that my grandfather on my dad's side got offered a job here in California teaching. He was a teacher, and he had been a principal of 2 schools at the same time in Pennsylvania, and he could make more money as a teacher out here, so they moved out here. But,
They do make more money. They still make more money out here.
Yeah.
But it's got to be way worse also to be a teacher out here.
Yeah. So we did go to the Dodger game
Yeah.
a lot when I was a kid. Never got close to foul ball. I just where the seats were or whatever. Just you see him. You'd always hope you bring your glove to the game.
I've probably been to 150 baseball games in my life. Never caught a foul ball.
Yeah. I mean, I hadn't even really been close up to this point.
Yeah.
And then so it's like 96. I go to the game with my girlfriend at the time's brother and dad and her son. My girlfriend and a son that was like 5 years old at the time or something like that. And so we bought these tickets, and first inning, Rockies are up. Guy hits a foul ball. It just comes right to me. We're sitting like in the reserve section, Dodger Stadium, like kind of that third deck,
Yeah.
Just floats up easily and just boop, catch it easy.
Awesome.
Like, yeah, and I was like, oh my gosh, but like we're there with the kid though, so I'm like, oh, I gotta give it to the kid.
I got to give it to the kid.
So I give it to the kid,
Bonus points with the girlfriend.
people are excited around me. Oh, good job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Second inning, another guy's up at bat for Rockies.
You're in the same spot.
Same spot. Foul ball once again, just almost exact replay. Like just floats
Straight
right up, catches it, and I'm like, I'm gonna get 9 foul balls this game.
Yeah.
Like I've already got 2. It's the second inning. I've already got 2.
Yeah.
And there was like these like Mexican guys in front of me. They're like they're drinking beer. Like their friend who had been there for the second one comes down. They're like, "Dos baseballs, gringo, dos baseballs."
It's always a good feeling when you get
that
referred to as a gringo. You're like, that's the gringo foul ball.
That's right. Yeah.
That excited the crew.
So I did catch 2 in the same game. And we didn't come close to another one. Like, right? I mean, I seriously had like delusions of like, I'm gonna get 9.
It's gonna keep
balls
coming.
this
This is
game.
the spot.
Yeah.
You're the gas station that has like 15 lotto winners on the record. Like, why do they keep winning? And you're like, because there's fraud going on. But in your mind, it's like it's just a lucky gas station.
Yeah. There've been a bunch of Dodger games since then. Still haven't come close to foul ball since then.
My non-racist grandfather caught a Bo Jackson foul ball.
Oh, yeah?
When I was probably 4th grade or something like that.
Yeah.
And I legitimately was like, my grandpa might be the coolest human that ever lived.
Yeah.
Solely because Bo Jackson popped one, 25 rows back, but my grandpa stood up and caught it. We're all just like, oh.
Yeah.
I didn't even know. He had
it's like framed somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we were kids, in his basement, he had like a bunch of his old stuff, and he had his old baseball glove from when he was a kid, and it didn't have it wasn't woven together.
Yeah.
The fingers were all separate, like Shoeless Joe
right.
style. And I just remember being like, my grandpa is 500 years old. Look how old this baseball glove is.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So that was the second best Dodger game I ever went to. The first one was, do you remember '88 when Kirk Gibson hit the home run? I was at that game.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Eckersley on the mound.
Eckersley on the mound, and we in a typical Dodger game, like most people had left, but we're like, it's the World Series. We're gonna stay. Like we know they're losing. I mean, they'd been losing since like the first inning. Canseco hit a grand slam or whatever, but we're gonna stay around. But the funniest part about it, in a way, is that these were 4 seats that we had. There were season tickets that my parents had split up with some people, and the people they usually like bought the tickets with couldn't go. So they had these 2 tickets, and my sister and I were like, we want to go. But my parents were we just talked about this just the other night. My parents remember the story very differently. I remember it very well. So they're calling around, like, asking aunts and uncles and all these other people, like, hey, you want to go to the World Series? And, like, it's last minute, but, like, none of them can go. Eventually, the only person that can go is our neighbor, but his wife doesn't want to go. It's just him. So they're like, all right, well, they had, like, a Sophie's Choice situation. Like, we got to take one of our
Which
kids.
kid's going?
They took me.
Yeah.
And my dad told my sister something like, I'm
might
sure the Dodgers will be back in the World
with
Series again soon, and we'll go back and we'll take you next time, So they take me. And
are you older than your sister?
2 years older. Yeah,
okay, yeah.
And I did play baseball.
That's legit then,
so,
yeah. All of it checks out. That's not a favorite thing. That's just
no, but it was
going by the
it was
rules.
tough. I mean, my sister gets to sit here and watch
Someone
the game.
feels bad.
Home,
yeah,
we're there for the moment. And
someone should have murdered the neighbor. Honestly, that's that's the easiest. I don't know if he's still around, but
he's down in Florida. Last I heard, he bought a hot dog cart and was doing that down on Daytona
God
Beach.
damn it! Look, that guy's doing it right. I take back no murder for that guy. He's living everyone's dream, selling hot dogs in Florida.
He had been like an aerospace engineer doing something that some kind of job he couldn't talk about involving.
They always want
rockets,
and he was just sitting there making nuclear missiles that could ruin the earth, thinking about that hot dog cart someday.
That's right. Yeah, living the dream in there. Yeah. But, so years later, my dad actually got to meet Tommy Lasorda, and he told Tommy Lasorda, like, hey, I've got a problem. I took my son to the 88 Kirk Gibson game.
Can you get back?
He's like, how do I make it back to my daughter? He's like, you will never make that up to your daughter.
No.
So,
I remember watching that game. I was like 7 or 8. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And
I was like 13 or 14, yeah.
Yeah. One of the only times we'd get to stay up late was if there was some sort of a major sporting event on.
Right.
But that was like I know a lot of people remember the Carlton Fisk home run, whatever it was, but I don't even know if I was born for that. That was like the first memory I have of a sports moment where I'm just like, this can happen? You can hit a home run to win the game?
Right, yeah.
And he's scooting along, fist pumping, and you're just like, oh, this guy's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's when baseball players were awesome. Because they all looked like they were the guy who lives down the street from you that drinks too much and works at the fucking grocery store deli.
Yeah, I actually saw Goose Gossage like a few years ago. It was actually quite a few years ago now, like 2000 or so. But he still looks like that.
Normal-looking man.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, now every one of them looks like, they were built in some sort of a factory, and you're like, holy shit, that's a human being?
Yeah.
But the 80s were a great time. Cocaine was the preferred performance enhancer for me.
As an 8-year-old watching baseball?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm looking at it different, I go, which one of these makes it more fair? If everyone's on coke, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
All the players taking steroids, now I've got some issues at least.
Yeah, right.
Another interesting fact about you is that you no longer take trains.
I don't take trains anymore.
It's a weird thing in general to say. Why were you taking trains in the first place?
I went to law school, and the first year of law school, I was still living with my parents. I'd moved back in for the first year of law school up in the Inland Empire. So it was just kind of easier to take the train in every
Where were
day.
you going to law school?
Chapman in Orange.
Oh, okay.
So that's now called like Dale Fowler School of Law, whatever.
All right.
But so I was going there, and I took the train in, and I did that for like 8 months. And then I got a job down in Santa Ana, so I had to stop taking the train. So like the week after I stopped taking the train, I get to school, and all these people run up to me. They're like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Why?" They're like, "Well, your train crashed." I'm like, "What?" Damn. Like a week after I stopped taking this train, it crashes and like people die, and it was bad,
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, well, dodged a bullet there,
Yeah. Then
I had another incident like several years later where I was trying to get back from LA, taking the train. I thought it'd be easier to take it for this mediation, and the train never came because apparently some guy had like taken hostages on the train at an earlier stop, and the SWAT team was there, and they're like, you gotta get home some other way, so I had to Uber home.
Honestly, it sounds like you're missing out on some of the best stories you could possibly have.
I know. Yeah. I mean, these would have been much more exciting stories if I'd actually been on these trains.
Had you survived.
Right.
That's a great story.
The third one actually was involved in the incident itself. Just
yes, all right.
It could be. So the third incident is and this is the one I'm like, okay, no more trains. Was I just again?
Those two did not convince you that
I was willing to give it another shot.
All right.
I'd like, okay, it's just kind of a fluky thing. This third one though, so I again for work, it was just driving to LA from Orange County is just such a pain in the morning. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna try to just take the train. It'll be easier. So I take the train and we're going through Anaheim or so. And all of a sudden the train stops, which the train, sometimes stops just kind of naturally anyway, so you don't think much of it. But then we kind of been sitting for a while, and eventually someone comes on and says, hey, we might be stuck here for a while. We hit something. And we're like, okay, so just go back to kind of trying to do my work or whatever. Eventually they come back on. They're like, okay, yeah, it was a person. It was a person. We hit a person. We're going to be here for a long time, guys. Just hang tight. So we're just sitting on the train for like 45 minutes. And apparently a woman had been hit and killed by this train. So they finally let us off the train. And now I'm like, well, I still got to get up to LA for, I'm supposed to be at this like meeting that I'm way, way late for already.
Yeah.
And so,
and no one's going to
and it's the train struck on the track. So I had to call an Uber. And with everyone else, so like we're all waiting for his Uber to show up. Eventually, an Uber shows up. It's like a minivan, and I get in, and the guy's like really friendly, kind of too friendly for an Uber driver, talking to you. And
I hope this turns into I never took an Uber again.
No, I did take an Uber again, but I get in, and like I'm noticing some weird stuff, like his dashboard, like where the clock would be, it's got like some kind of numbers and letters on it that I'm like, what is that? Because usually it's either like a clock or a radio station. It's neither. And I keep looking at the front here, and the guy's talking to me, and I'm noticing there's a Bible on his dashboard, and then there's a cross singing from the rearview mirror. And I look again, it's like, oh, that's a Bible verse. I don't know how he's got it programmed, but he's got somehow a Bible verse on his little thing. So sure enough, eventually the conversation comes around to talking about religion. I just want to preface it by saying I have no problem with people being religious. Fine, great.
Yeah. But I do have a problem with it. I want that on the record. All right? If you believe in shit, I don't want to hear about it, period. All right, go back to being a decent human.
So I'm just like, kind of just, the guys.
Are you religious at all?
I was.
Okay.
I was Catholic, and I was actually a missionary for a while. We can get into that
really?
if you want to later, but yeah.
Are you atheist now?
I wouldn't say I'm atheist.
Yeah.
I'm probably agnostic. I just don't.
You don't participate in church.
Yeah, I don't participate
all right.
in church.
That's
it's
standard phase of Catholicism.
Yeah.
You get there eventually, you're like, I'm not doing this. Yeah.
So the guy eventually starts coming around to talking about he's clearly like an evangelical
What
Christian.
was his pitch? Who was he preaching for?
He was. I don't know. It was definitely just some sort of evangelical Christian. I don't know specifically.
Right.
So he's kind of doing the hardcore press now. He's like, we were originally, and I told him the story about why I was taking this Uber in the first place, so he knew about that. But then, conversation fairly quickly shifted to talking about our Lord and Savior for the next hour and a half, and he's just talking and asking me questions occasionally, and I'm like, oh man, and it's like I've ever had like this extremely rough morning.
Yeah.
And so finally we get to where I'm supposed to be, and I'm getting out, and I said, hey, you've been asking me a lot of questions. Let me ask you a question. I said, do you think it was God's plan for us to have this conversation meet today? He said, yeah, I think so. I said, you realize that plan involved a woman getting killed by a train?
Yeah. He goes, yeah, that's who I was driving in my Uber before. She said, let me out here, and then she dove in front of that train. I think after an hour and a half of getting preached at an Uber, I would have been looking for the quickest route out of living.
I think his response was something like, well, I don't really understand how God works. I'm like, yeah, me either.
Yeah, it's a mystery. I need you to talk to Patrick today. What if she slowly crossed the tracks? I do one of the best God impressions in the business.
So that was my last train.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think I would. I honestly, I think if I came that close on any of the train stories, I would have been like, this isn't for me. I don't like public transportation in general, but train hits the lady, I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty terrible.
Yeah. I mean, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
They
probably didn't. Did they say? Was it a suicide?
I think I found out later. I don't remember how that. Yeah, it was a suicide.
Yeah.
It's sad. I mean, but I guess it happens. What's funny though is that, well, I guess it's not funny, but like the train I took for 8 months, nothing like that ever happened. Like,
right.
We never hit anybody or anything. But then, apparently the week I stopped, then that's when they did.
Smart.
Hit somebody. They actually hit another train at that game.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
All right, and then you have family in Iowa.
Yeah.
Which part of Iowa are we talking about?
We're talking northeastern Iowa.
Okay.
Like Galt, Iowa. So it's a very small town. They have one street. They call it the Galt Blacktop.
And this is towards Illinois?
This is actually very much towards like Minnesota. So it's it's about 3 hours away from St. Paul, Minneapolis, about 2 hours north of Des Moines.
Okay.
So my dad's sister married a farmer from out there. And he's like this huge, like 6'6" Norwegian guy.
Yeah. There's a lot of those types out there.
Great guy.
Yeah.
Like he's he's a very strong Christian conservative guy, but to the point where he actually hated Trump because he's like, well, that guy's not a Christian. I'm like,
yeah,
okay, good. I'm glad you see it too.
Those are the Republicans. I'm like, yeah, there's still some of them that have their minds.
Yeah.
We don't agree on a lot of things, but they're not just complete
absolutely.
Psychopaths.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he was a county supervisor for 25 years. And we were out there in 94 visiting him. And he's like, oh, you want to come see the county supervisor meeting? You've seen like the LA County supervisor meetings, Orange County, right? They're like big affairs, are on TV, et cetera. The Galt or the Wright County, it was Wright County, Iowa. Their county supervisor meeting consisted of the county supervisors, one reporter, and us, like my family. That's the only people that were at this meeting. And so they're doing their business, doing their thing. And then all of a sudden the sheriff comes in, and the sheriff's like, hey, I want to talk about something. I'm like, okay, what? What do you want to talk about? And he'll just like stop the meeting and just like, what is it, Sheriff?
Dale, just tell us what you want, man.
Yeah. And he says, well, last week we had to, there was a fight between one of these wets and another guy in town, and we had to arrest him and paid $30 for an interpreter. And instead of paying $30 every time something like this happens, I think we just need to go with a 13-cent solution. And I'm like, oh, what's the 13 cents? Well, a bullet costs about 13 cents.
He's like, holy shit.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean,
and my uncle was like, okay, stop right there. Stop. And he kind of turns to the reporter. He's like, don't print any of this. And the reporter's like, he knows the sheriff. He's like, I got it.
We've all met him.
Yeah.
They already won't let us publish the shit he says on the normal weeks.
Yeah. So, it was a
I
interesting
mean,
place.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe most of the middle part of the country. It's just, some interesting characters out there.
Did you grow up like in more rural Kansas or like city Kansas?
I grew up in the suburbs.
Okay.
So like maybe 5 miles west of where I lived was full country.
Yeah.
And farms and then where I lived, there was a McDonald's every mile and a half.
Right.
And it was all just neighborhoods. Even when I was growing up, there really weren't even that many apartment complexes around.
Yeah.
And they've been built up more and more over the years. Like I went back maybe 10 years ago for something and saw my one of my old coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, so how's school? What's going on? And he was like, well, there's a lot of apartments around here now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay. And literally no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And then I said something. My parents were like, that he means that there's Mexicans. I'm like,
oh, okay.
I got it. Yeah, it didn't.
Yeah.
I'm like, that cool.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm supposed to respond to there's a lot of apartments. I wasn't putting it all together because I lived in L.A. in an apartment. So I'm just like, so a lot of people with big dreams that are trying to do something with their lives? Oh, you mean that it's not as white as you'd like it to be.
Right.
Got it.
Right. Yeah.
And so you went to law school. So are you a lawyer?
I am a lawyer.
What kind of law do you do?
Boring. No, I do real estate. So I work for a title insurance company, and basically we do litigation title disputes, which is literally stuff like, if your neighbor's fence is 5 feet into your yard and you realize it, you go sue about that. So that stuff's not super fun to talk about at parties, but
no, but I mean, do you
but the fraud cases are kind of cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like, there's got to be some good. You might not personally have to deal with them, but there's got to be some good, Hatfield and McCoy's.
Yeah.
Vengeance and murder because of the fence that's 5 feet into yards.
There is. Actually, one of the people I work with had a claim where the neighbor eventually did kill the other neighbor.
Yeah.
That does happen. So it gets bad. The worst one I've had personally was a neighbor who put, my client apparently put someone on the other side under citizen's arrest, which,
that's the best.
Yeah.
Is that even a legal thing? Citizen's arrest?
I don't think so.
I don't think that's real, right?
I don't know. Yeah. But my client was like, he was, kind of a military guy and very, very hardcore, and he just thought, this guy's trespassing on my land, I'm going to arrest him.
Smart.
So he just, so that,
took him down.
That didn't make things better for the
Is
case.
That right?
Yeah,
the neighbor didn't go, you know what, I respect him more now that he's shown me who the rooster is.
Yeah. I also had a case up here in like L.A. where I was at a house where there was like a dispute over a fence and where it was and so forth, and I guess one of the neighbors had taken down like a whole bunch of foliage between the two properties, and this old lady, like I can't remember if she was my client or the other neighbor, but she said She's like, well, they took all that stuff down, and I'm upset because, I swim out here nude every day. And I started cracking up thinking she was joking. She did not laugh. She was dead serious, apparently.
And this is like a golden girl of some sort? How old are we talking, do you think?
She was at least 75, 80.
That's 80 years of unbelievable beauty that the neighbors were now able to gaze upon.
Right.
I mean, honestly, the neighbor should have asked beforehand, like, you're not swimming naked or anything, are you? And when she was like, every single day, they'd be like, we're going to put up more trees. That's how I would have handled it.
That's right, exactly.
I would have offered to put more trees up.
Right. Like, now we're building a wall.
So do you actually have to go to court for this, or is this something like arbitration? How do you...
No, I mostly court. I mean, arbitration's a thing that can happen occasionally, but no, mostly court. So you go to LA courthouses and stuff like that. And
so we go to court. We're disputed over land. I say your fence is on my property, or you cut down my tree.
Right.
And then I present my argument about it, and then a judge just decides. How does that work?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, I mean that's the very, very, very short version of it. Yeah, nine times or more out of 10, the parties actually settle amongst themselves before the judge gets to decide anything. But I mean, if it gets all the way to trial, then eventually the judge or a jury just says, "Yep, you cut down the tree, you shouldn't have," that kind of thing.
So then you have to plant a new tree?
Usually, if you cut down a tree, you got to pay. Trees are a lot more expensive than I realized. That's one thing I learned in this business.
Especially for a full-grown tree.
Yeah, trees are worth way more money than I would have thought for a full-grown actual tree. I remember when I first saw estimates, I'm like, "What? Is this tree made of gold? What's wrong?"
Yeah, I had a friend who rented a house, and they cut down, I can't remember, I think it was an avocado tree or something.
Yeah.
And so they claimed that it was starting to rot, or was doing it. There was some reason why they cut it down, and then the property owner got really mad about it and was like, well, you're going to have to replace it with a tree. But he wanted one that, grew fruit or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so then he was like, telling, I forget what it was, but it was absurd. It was like $14,000 or something. I mean, something where you're just like, what?
Really? Yeah, I know.
I can't remember what it was.
How about just buying a new car instead?
Can I just give you $20,000?
Right.
That's basically what you're doing.
Yeah.
And the guy didn't even live there, so it was like the dude was still going to be living in this house.
Yeah.
And it eventually got so bad that he did move out. But rich people who can afford a full-grown oak are not people I respect. You hear me? Especially if you're religious.
Well, that's the thing is sometimes now I drive by neighborhoods and I look at houses and I think that house is probably worth a lot of money, but those trees,
they got 4
that's
trees.
half the value of your property is those trees apparently.
Yeah.
So
that's nuts.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to come back in a minute, and Sarah's going to ask some follow-up questions because she understands the things that I miss because my brain is twisted and broken.
No problem.
But thank you, Patrick. We'll be right back.
All right, cool.
Say hi to everyday people.
Guys, welcome back. Before we say anything else, Tony in the booth, unbelievable job. Great looking guy. I don't know if anyone's looking for a fine piece of ace / production producer.
It's a good Billy Madison reference.
Thank you. A lot of people won't understand.
I got a funny story about that, actually.
What happened?
So when I was at Chapman in law school, right, the guy that plays the bad guy, whose name is escaping me at the moment, but what's the guy's name? The guy was on West Wing. Yeah. Josh, what's his name?
Bradford.
Bradley Whitford.
Okay,
Bradley Whitford comes and gives a talk at Chapman, right? And I was a huge fan of Billy Madison, so I brought my DVD of it for him to sign,
Which is awesome.
And so...
of all of his work.
Right. And so
That's who he is to me, too. The bad guy in Billy Madison.
Exactly. And I love The West Wing. And during his talk, he was talking about how he never watches anything, that he's in. He just thinks it's weird, which I've heard other people say. Yeah. I get it. So doesn't talk about Billy Madison. He's talking mostly about other more important things he's done. And so at the end, there's a lot of people to come up and talk to him and sign stuff or whatever. So I bring my DVD up. I hand him the Billy Madison DVD. He's like, really? I was like, yeah. I'm like, you were good in this.
Yeah.
And so at home, I have a DVD that says, I heard this blows, Bradley Whitford.
Damn. See, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And he's one of those guys where I know people associate him as a great actor from serious acting roles.
Right,
Like,
right.
Every time I watch, like when I watch The West Wing, I'm just like, it's Eric from Billy Madison.
Yeah.
Eric's pregnant. Is like why everyone in the White House doesn't do that to him every time he's there. He's gonna be a soccer player.
That's good.
There was this comic, I can't remember what his name was, a Middle Eastern guy. He used to do impressions, and in the early 2000s, me and Jeff Danish and Ryan O'Neal and a couple other Comedy Store guys. We didn't get a lot of stage time, but we spent a lot of time ruining the stage time of other people. And so this guy would get spots sometimes, and he did the worst impressions of anyone I'd ever seen.
Okay.
And I've seen bad impressionists, but like you're watching him, and he'd always tell you who he was doing first.
Not a good sign.
And then you're like watching, like, wait, is that
Yeah.
who he's doing?
Right.
And so at one point he was doing something. He was like, it's kind of like if Adam Sandler said. And they started doing his Adam Sandler impression. And I can't even do an impression of it. It was so bad.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I kept waiting because I thought he was doing something else, and then the Adam Sandler impression was going to come in. And then at a certain point, Danish or O'Neal's like, wait, is that Sandler? And then I said something like, he's going to do that Sandler impression today, Junior. And then the guy, the look on his face was like devastated.
Yeah.
And then he was like, all right, who's next? And he was like maybe 6 minutes into his 15-minute set.
Aw.
And we're all in the back like, oh, shit, we broke him. And then he never came to the Comedy Store again. And it was the greatest thing I've ever achieved in my life.
I make a Billy Madison reference at least once a week.
Yeah.
It's either to Today Junior or, the zoo is very nice. I mean, it's like
There's so
so many. And like that movie, I cried laughing when I saw that movie in college.
But there's so many ridiculous
an
parts.
underappreciated masterpiece.
Yeah, when the clown comes back to life in the musical number, to me, it's one of those moments where you go, see, that's perfect cinema.
Yeah.
That's fine filmmaking.
It is, yeah.
All right, so sorry, we were just waxing
Yeah, sorry. Talking about
Adam
Billy Madison.
Sandler.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Do you have questions?
I have a few. Yeah.
Okay.
So you have a family.
I do.
I know you have a wife. You mentioned your wife.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been together?
We've been together since law school. We met in law school. Started
Oh.
dating like the first month of law school, which is a bad idea, by the way, in law school, is to start dating someone immediately because it just kind of takes your focus off of law school. But anyway, yeah, so we did.
What's more important in life, you know?
Yeah, I know.
Law school or love?
Yeah, true.
Do you guys debate well together?
No, we don't really debate at all. We don't fight about
Oh.
almost anything. It's kind of weird. Like it's like to a point where it's like almost a problem. You know what I'm saying? Like
A little
I think
too
like
peaceful.
a little fighting's good in a relationship, and we're kind of it's a cold war all the time.
What?
You know?
Which one of you was a better law student?
My wife for sure.
Definitely
My wife,
better
like,
than you.
Yeah, when we graduated, she had all these like fancy awards and
She
stuff
had
like that.
Latin
but now she's not even
honors.
practicing. Like she was the better student.
Yeah.
But didn't even really want. I mean, she kind of just ended up in law school. Like when you asked her, like, why'd you go to law school? She's like, well, because I didn't want to go to get my doctorate in history. It's like that's a weird reason, but
Yeah.
okay, sure. So she just likes school. Like I think she
Right.
was totally happy just being a student her entire life.
Yeah.
She's good at it, whereas I was just distracted all the time, and I hated law school.
You mentioned before we started recording, but you were a philosophy major.
I was a philosophy major in college. Now that I liked a lot. Like I loved like that's one time in school I did well was
Philosophy.
Yeah.
Because there's no right answer, and it's
I think it's just fascinating. I mean, when you really start to analyze like what we know and how we know it, there's not much there.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of shockingly little how much we actually know about the world and how it works, and just it's like there's a lot of holes in a lot of.
400 years from now, are they going to be talking about the great philosopher Joe Rogan and the ideas he was putting out?
I'll tell you what. I like the fact I'm not. I'll clarify. I don't listen to his podcast. I'm not like I would not call myself.
It's
like,
okay if you do,
yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, no, and I know. Yeah, but it's I do like his stand up.
Yeah.
I like that he's an independent thinker. I guess I give him that. I just kind of wish that with as big a microphone as he has that he'd kind of use it responsibly. But I also have not listened to podcasts, so I guess to be fair, I don't even know what he's saying, to be honest.
Yeah.
Whereas Neil Young, I guess, I don't know. I guess I'm not in favor of censorship generally, so
Well,
it's an odd position for a liberal to take is like, you got to shut your mouth.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things about the whole argument from all sides that I don't understand at all. Like people are saying Neil Young is sacrificing so much, but also by not having 1 million people listen to his music on Spotify, he's losing like $40.
Right, exactly.
Because they pay nothing.
Exactly.
It's a giant fucking fuck you to the artists in general.
Right.
So he's not really losing anything by pulling out.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
And if anything, maybe he's getting so much publicity, he'll get people to listen to him on these other
on the others,
platforms, right?
absolutely.
So like his Apple listens more than make up the difference because it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about Neil Young.
Yeah.
Is his music good? Let me go check it out. You know.
Yeah, I'll listen to it just because I'm glad that he's taking a stand.
Yeah.
Which there's definitely people out there doing it.
Totally.
Also, I don't understand the argument of they're trying to, silence Joe. Because if all Spotify can do basically is fire him.
Yeah.
And so if they fire him, then he can just do a different podcast and still get his message out and probably have more people listen to it.
Yeah.
He just wouldn't get $100 million.
Right. Right.
So it's people who are arguing like they're trying to censor Joe. It's like they're trying to make Joe not have $100 million.
Yeah.
But his show is on the internet, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, people can just listen to it.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Anyway, if all of his listeners would just tune into this podcast, you're welcome. Whatever it is you guys are into is the main thing we're into here.
Yeah. So, but back to the question. I've been with my wife for 20 years, been married for 17. We have one son who's 14 years old. Technically, I have a daughter as well, but biologically I have another daughter.
Okay.
She's 28. So
nice.
Yeah.
So someone was Genghis Khaning on their own a little bit.
I got a little busy in high school. Yeah, but
Nice.
it's actually a beautiful story. We did an open adoption. So
Okay.
I've known her my entire life. She's grown up with another family that, we just like over the holidays we all got together in Santa Barbara and had dinner. And she's got another sister that's also adopted, the same kind of arrangement. So I've known my daughter her entire life. She's known me, and
That's cool.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. High school. How terrifying is that?
Yeah, exactly.
I can't even imagine. Girls wouldn't even talk to me in high school.
Yeah.
Like not even speak to me.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how it worked out. I didn't have any game either, so I don't know how it happened. But
See?
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, yeah, I mean, it just worked out for me. I'm like, I feel like you must be better looking than me because it didn't work out like that. I did go to high school dances exclusively with a lesbian.
Okay.
So that didn't help.
Did you know she was a lesbian at the time?
No. I did.
All right.
I mean, regularly my friends would be like, dude, she's gay. And I'd be like, I don't think so.
That was me and my best friend in high school.
Yeah.
So I had a best friend in high school, this guy named Eric. He was a very good-looking guy. He was homecoming king. He and I went to different high schools, but like he was, but the signs were like all over the place, right? He's like, we'd be driving, he'd be like voguing in my passenger seat. I'm like, and people like ask me all the time, like, is Eric gay? I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But, meanwhile, he's like dating like the hottest girls in school, and then he breaks up with them after like a week. He's like, I don't know. Her teeth weren't quite aligned right, or whatever. He just come up with these like ridiculous reasons to dump these like really attractive girls, and I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. And then like later, like like we'd stay the night at each other's houses or whatever like that, and he never like full on like made a move on me or anything like that. But he would ask me questions like, you ever wonder about like guys having sex like it must feel good, right? I mean, what else do they do? You ever think about that? I'm like, honestly, Eric, no. But even then, I still was like so naive. I'm like, no, haven't thought about it. All right, good night.
Dude, my friends are so curious. That's just really cool.
No, my friend who's voguing in my car and asking about anal sex is not gay. I don't know why you guys keep asking me about this. But no,
Can I just see your dick for a minute? Yeah, I mean, we're
turned
bros, right?
It turned out he was very gay.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I felt bad because actually, I mean, I don't know if he just didn't feel comfortable coming out to me or what. But
he might not have known either.
He probably wasn't
I
comfortable
think
coming
he
out
was
to
very
him.
aware.
Yeah.
I mean, he might have been figuring it out, I suppose. But like I think he knew. But anyway, that's why I was asking like if he knew or not. Because like
I didn't. I was like, no, you know what? We'll see what happens. My friend's like, she's the star of the school soccer team. And I'll be like, which is a normal, hetero thing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, then when I was doing shows in New York with Dice, and I think it was 23 or 24 or something like that, and her and a couple of her friends came to one of the shows, and I think we were in Long Island or something, and then she was like, yeah, come hang out. She was going to NYU at the time. So I said, all right. And I went and hung out with her a couple days later, and she was like, so, my friend is actually my girlfriend. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, this is great.
Lifetime of ahas.
Yeah, so it wasn't that I was a squirrely-looking weirdo. It was, in fact, just that I'm a man. Otherwise, would have been madly in love with me for sure.
Right.
Exactly. So what do you do outside of work? Do you have any fun hobbies with your family or alone? Do you like to travel?
Let's see. I was in a cover band that broke up today.
Oh.
Is that true?
Yeah, broke up today.
This
sadly.
is big news.
Yeah.
Who are you a cover band of?
We were doing like 80s, like Cure, Smiths, kind of alternative stuff. We'd been like in some version or other been doing it since like 2006.
All right.
And
wow.
we were trying to get it back off the ground. We just like auditioned a new guitar player, and we're gonna try to get it going. And unfortunately, just one of the guys had to back out, and then the rest of us were like, yeah, we're kind of done too. We're just not really feeling it. So.
And what did you play?
I play guitar and sing.
Okay.
But not very well at either one. It's like I tell people, it's like karaoke, but nobody else gets a turn. It's
Which is awesome.
yeah.
It should.
The best kind of karaoke.
Yeah. The worst part about karaoke are
waiting.
other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're like, no, this is terrible. Bad song, bad singer. Next.
Well, it's
But
the
you
worst.
can't-
Is like when you go to karaoke and like you put your name in and it's been like an hour, and meanwhile like the same person's been up like 3 times, and like
You're like, they know
Yeah.
the DJ. This is some bullshit.
I was at the
Exactly.
farmer's market last Sunday, and there was a woman sitting on the curb playing music on her phone and singing into a microphone with it louder than the artist who was singing. And then she would turn it down when the commercials came on.
Even better.
Because
Doesn't have
a
the
free
streaming
version,
service.
yeah, isn't paying the $6 a month for
Listen,
whatever
if your
platform
if
that
your
is.
gig is just singing
yeah.
on a curb at a farmer's market, you're not paying for subscriptions.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
You're lucky she wasn't just doing YouTube.
Yeah.
Right.
The song stops 40 seconds in, gets a quick ad in.
Yeah.
Alpha Brain.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I was doing for fun for
Did-
the most
Okay.
part. But yeah.
Did
But
you
no.
guys have a cool, dark, angsty name?
No, our first name was Element Zero, which was it's like we got to that name like in a very bizarre series. Like we were going to be Saved by Zero, which is like the name of an '80s song, and then people thought it was like somehow like an anti-religious thing. We're like, no, that's not what it means. I don't think that's what the original song means either. I
Yeah.
don't know what it means. But we're like, all right, we're not going to go that way. And then another guy wanted to call it like Element 19 because that's like silicon. So he's like, you get it? Like fake boobs, get it? I'm like, that's way obscure. So then we kind of merged the two and it was like Element Zero, and it meant nothing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
The best names don't.
yeah, right. So
Yeah.
then we kind of carried on for a while, and then at one point I was the only original member left, and we're like, well, we should change the name now because it's kind of dumb. So I called ourselves Fireball
Nice.
for a while. Yeah. So, because I was a huge fan of Fireball at the time.
I was gonna say, are you guys like taking shots of Fireball before your set?
We would, yeah. Well, that's kind of yeah, right. So even like when the other guys were in the band, like we would always like do a shot of Fireball before
Yeah.
the set. So, but then it was funny because when we were called Fireball, like sometimes like drunk girls would come up to you like between sets and they're like, "What's the name of your band?" "Oh, we're Fireball. Oh, then we should give you a shot of Fireball. I was like, damn, I should call the band Blowjob.
Yeah. Smart. God damn.
Yeah, missed an
I
opportunity.
didn't even
there.
see it coming. I thought
Yeah.
he was going to go with a different brand.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's he going to oh.
yeah. So and then we got then we kind of had a completely. Then the original members came back and we kind of were doing something. So we at that point we were Cobra Kai
Okay, nice.
before the show came out. So like it
Right.
seemed kind of cool, 80s
Yeah.
reference.
Nostalgia.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to be called. I mean, we were in the process of trying to name the new thing when we broke up. So we had several options on the table, none of which seemed that great.
I always, when I talk to musicians, I always love to discuss how everyone on earth constantly thinks of great band names, but people who are in bands can never think of any of
Yeah,
them.
right.
It's always like,
It's hard.
Yeah, it's like Gary in accounting has
Yeah.
45 horrible ideas for band names a week.
Right.
You're just like, oh fuck, here comes Gary. Yeah, I was pooping. I was thinking a funny band name would be Broken Stall. Do you get it? You're like, yeah, I guess, man. Anyway, Gary, if you could get us those fucking reports.
TPS reports.
Yeah. Exactly.
Do you play any instruments?
I played the cello from
Really?
That checks out.
fourth to seventh grade,
Okay.
And you know, I wanted to be
Did
cool.
you try to play like songs like that you liked on the cello, like pop songs or whatever you were into?
No, I
Okay.
basically just played whatever the crappy classical shit that they were forcing me to play
Yeah.
was.
Well,
Like my parents wanted me to play an instrument. I remember wanting to play the saxophone and being like, out of all the school instruments, that's the coolest. And they're
Yeah.
like, you got to do 2 years of clarinet first.
Oh
Mhm.
man.
And I'm like, well, I'm not doing any
Yeah.
minutes of clarinet
Right,
because I'm
right.
fucking cool and I've got soul and I want to be able to, you know, just really move some people with my saxophoning.
Right.
And so then someone was like, well, if you play cello, then you can just use the school's cello. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, obviously cello's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then I immediately regretted it because I had to carry this enormous cello
I did the
around.
same thing.
No.
Like as a
You had to bring it to and from school.
yeah, I was this tiny
Oh.
little like fourth grader.
Yeah.
A cello that was as big as me.
Yeah.
No one thought I was cool.
My mom got me a rolling backpack in 6th grade because my books were so heavy, and I was like, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna get beat up
Yeah,
at
people-
school.
Yeah.
They're gonna
for
break the
using this.
wheels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brought all your books home, loser. Oh, jeez.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, that was the extent of my musical ability. And then I started, when I say, I was about to say I started getting pretty good. By that I mean by standards of like a 7th grader who plays
Sure.
cello.
Yeah.
They invited me to play in some
Cellist.
district, some district honors strings thing. And I'm like, well, what does that involve? And they're like, well, you practice 4 days a week. I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
That sounds awful. 4 days a week.
Yeah.
I still had big aspirations of being a baseball player and a basketball player, and you know, I did that 3 or 4 days a week, and I was still terrible at it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I got out of the music business for good after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
Tough biz.
yeah. I'm hopefully gonna hook up and do something, musically in the future. But
yeah.
this particular band is dead.
Well, now that you've
So-
got the name Broken Stall,
Yeah, Broken
you
Stall.
can use that
Yeah.
and just go anywhere.
Yeah.
I had a friend. One summer I lived in Colorado and I worked at a resort, and my friend kept
Where in
telling
Colorado?
Estes Park.
Yeah.
So,
So I lived. The only place I've lived outside of California was Fort Collins,
oh yeah,
and I was a sales rep for Coca-Cola, which basically meant that I sat at home and watched TV all day.
yeah.
And so I only had the job for 8 months. It was like the last job I had before law school, and Estes Park was part of my territory. So
Nice.
That's a great little town.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
cool. My family used to always vacation there when I was growing up,
Yeah.
and
The Shining Hotel.
yeah, the Stanley.
Right.
Yeah, I worked at a place was like it's called the YMCA of the Rockies, but it's a bunch of cabins. It's basically a resort that
Yeah.
rents out. They have like 200 cabins or something in their own little
Mm-hmm.
valley. It's right next to Rocky Mountain National Park. So
Yeah.
um,
I want to say that might have been one of my accounts. I think
It
that might have been
probably
like,
was.
I think it was like my largest account. Did they serve Coke there? Like
Yeah.
the fountains.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was like,
Yeah,
like,
it-
basically like my job with vis-a-vis that place was just to go up there like once a year, be like, here's your Broncos tickets.
yeah,
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a nice summer job. A lot of the people were pretty religious, which I wasn't prepared for. But I
Mhm.
found like my 4 friends that I would go and just get super high with, and
Yeah.
drank occasionally, even though we were underage, and do cool things.
Yeah.
But yeah, my buddy, he would always tell people that he was in a band, even though he didn't play any instruments, because people would be like, "What's your guys' story?" And he'd be like, "Oh, I'm in a band." "Oh, cool. What's your guys' names?" And he'd go, "Miyagi knows karate." And he always
that's
told
good.
him that they were a punk rock band. People were like, "Oh, that's awesome. When are you doing shows?" He's like, "I think our next one's going to be at the end of July." And then you just push it
always-
back
yeah,
until,
yeah.
"Oh, we're definitely going to go." "Cool, yeah, I'll remind you."
Yeah.
And then as, you know, it got to August and we all had to go back to college or whatever it was. And it's like, yeah, band didn't get to play, man. But,
Yeah.
you know, maybe next summer, if we're all back, we'll get the whole band out here. And I always thought it was a funny name.
Yeah.
Sounds a lot like COVID. Like, oh yeah, when this is all over.
Yeah.
Do you know how many
Right.
plans I have that are just
Oh my gosh.
postponed
we were supposed to go
until
to
after
Japan.
COVID?
Like, I remember like when the whole thing was like starting to happen like January, February, whatever.
Yeah.
Like and like we were supposed to go to Japan like in November. So it was like almost a year away. And people were like, occasionally people would ask me like, are you still going to go to Japan? Like, of course we're going to Japan. Like, that's
Right.
a long time away. Like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't we go to Japan? And then like, how stupid we were.
Yeah, I remember being like,
5 canceled vacations later,
ah
I honestly remember
Japan's cool.
thinking like, we probably got to do this shit for 5-6 weeks.
Yeah.
And thinking
Right.
like that's like worst case scenario. Just
Yeah.
like they're gonna get it and it'll be fine.
I was actually kind of excited. It was like, oh, dude, just gonna sit at home, working from home for like
Yeah.
3 weeks. Yeah, mac and cheese every day for lunch. Why not? You know, like
Yeah.
then, like
In hindsight, it was
3
a
months
really
later.
nice reset. It was like a complete lack of
was
expectation.
it? No, yeah, I know.
You know,
Yeah.
at the time it was scary, right? Like, because we just didn't know. But then,
Right.
you know, as time went on, it was like, oh, that was a really nice few weeks, you know?
yeah,
I did.
yeah.
I really did like the first couple months. I had never taken a break from doing comedy because I never
Mhm.
made enough money to where I was like, I can just do this
Just
other
cruise,
stuff for
yeah.
a while. So it's always like, you never know. Maybe the right person is going to see me. So I have to keep doing shows, even if it's like going up for 8 people at 1 a.m. Like, you never know. You never know who's going to be there. Just
Yeah.
lying to myself for the last 20 years.
Wow.
And so having a couple months off, I'm like, well, I can't perform, so this is great. And it felt awesome. And then after a couple months, I'm like, this is terrible. Like,
Yeah.
I have no one to make fun of. Can't make fun of my wife and my 2 children. Then I'd be an absolute monster.
Yeah,
And I'm like, I don't have strangers to take out all of my aggression on. This is horrible.
you're not the only person I know. I listened to Conan O'Brien's podcast. He was saying something very similar. His wife was like, "You need a stage. You need an audience.
Yeah.
Like, you're driving us insane."
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
I was going nuts.
Yeah.
I really was. I'm like exercising every night. I'm like, this is great. I'm loving
Yeah.
this. And then I'm like, fuck exercise. Show me a Canadian so I can spit on someone.
I love Canada. I know your thing with Canadians, but
They're
I love Canada.
they're unbelievable people. People are always like,
Yeah.
why do you hate Canadians? I'm like, I don't know, 90s wrestling, I guess.
Yeah, I don't
You
know.
were just
we
taught
didn't
to.
we didn't have a war, so they were like,
Do
all
you
right,
remember the Kids in the Hall joke about Canadians? There's an episode where the guy's like vacationing in the Philippines and he hands like the waiter $1 and he's like, "Oh, you American?" He goes, "No, I'm Canadian. It's an American but without a gun." You know?
awesome. It is basically what they are. They're just
Pretty
nice
much.
Americans.
They're super nice Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And only
Yeah.
recently did all the stuff come out about them murdering indigenous people.
Yeah.
And so I try and use that as often as possible
Yeah,
when
maybe
talking to
something.
Canadians to just remind them, you're not so perfect up there.
Also,
Yeah.
they're very, very harsh on people who get DUIs from any other country coming into
Yeah.
Canada. They're like they
They
don't
won't let 'em
mess
in.
around. They won't let them in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My buddy was
Really?
he did pit
Yes.
crew on like small scale racing,
Yeah.
and they had some race up in, I think it was in Montreal, and he got stopped at the border and they wouldn't let him in because he had a DUI like 4 years earlier.
Right. So I got a buddy.
How are they checking that? How do they know that?
You have
They
to do-
share data with the FBI. The FBI is like their crime registry or whatever. So I have a
Whoa.
buddy who lives in a different state, and the state he lives in, even though it's like a misdemeanor here or whatever, there's no way to expunge it. Like the state just doesn't have that process, and
Yeah.
so as a result, like he just could never go to Canada. Like they're just like, yeah.
Can you? Okay,
It's
but
considered a
is
felony
this
up there.
just driving there? Like if you drive into Canada, if you fly
No,
there?
Like if you fly there, they'll just put you right back
On
on
a
the plane and send you back home.
Yeah, they
no way.
they scan your info and then
pretty
I've heard about
badass,
cruise
I mean-
ships where they'll like march off a cruise ship and send you back. You know, that's,
Yeah.
they don't mess around. There is, I mean,
Wow.
if it's been like enough time passes,
right.
eventually there's a process you can say like, please let me back in Canada.
Right,
but
right.
Yeah, it's really really hard. So
Whoa.
they're a little bit. They're kind of, and they're the only country in the world that does it. Like every other country in the world, you can have no problem, but Canada's the one that's like, nope, probably gonna let you.
Do they have low rates of like DUIs up there?
I don't know. What's so funny to me is that I remember when I was in Canada, the drinking age in every province was either 18 or 19. So it was like
Yeah.
lower. It's like, okay, so you're letting all these people drink much younger, but then you're.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like there are
Yeah.
people that drink much younger in a lot of countries, and they do not have the same issues we do with alcohol.
Yeah, well, they don't have the Puritan.
Maybe just because the roads are all frozen over, it's like much more dangerous to drive drunk. I don't know.
Probably true.
Yeah, just driving on.
I
ice
think
everywhere.
they literally just go,
Wonder
how do
who's-
we keep American troublemakers out of our fucking country?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
no one's driving to Canada other than Americans.
That's
Right.
true.
So
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
literally, I mean, it's solely just like a get these fucking Americans out of here.
Yeah, maybe there was like a year there was like too many tourists. Like, you know what? Like, let's just say no DUIs, and that gets rid of half the Americans.
Yeah, at least half
the
of 'em.
Americans will go away. You know,
So smart. It's
They
it's
don't
kind
get
of
Frank
a
Collar Bats,
it's
Oliver Molson.
it's almost, what's the guy's name in Avengers? Thanos. It's
Thanos,
almost
yeah.
it's
The
almost
snap.
it's almost
Wasn't
a
that
Canadian
a stupid
Thanos.
plan? By the way, this whole thing of this, I was like,
The snap.
the snap is so stupid because you know when we had half the world's population, like in 1975,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like that's gonna you're delaying the inevitable for maybe 30 years across the universe. The dumbest plan ever.
Listen, I got to be honest. There was a lot of things about the Avengers series that I questioned.
Well, yeah, we just saw the new Spider-Man movie, and as soon as it was over, I told my wife, I'm like, that's the best movie I've ever seen that made no sense whatsoever. Like, none of it made any sense. I loved it.
I haven't
thought it
seen
was great, very entertaining.
I've heard good
Not
things,
one
but
bit of sense in the entire movie.
You're like, so they just created multiple universes, so anything is possible, and we're literally limited by nothing now.
Do you know why they did that though in the comics?
I don't know.
Because apparently, like they're trying to write all these comic book stories back in the day, and so apparently what was happening was you had a situation like with the Flash, the character of the Flash, right? So you had, the original story of the Flash in the comic books was there's this guy and he becomes the Flash through superpowers or whatever, right? But then eventually, like, they kill that character off or do whatever. And so then another guy becomes a Flash, but he became the Flash because he was inspired by the comic book. So they're like, well, wait a minute. They wrote themselves into this problem, right?
Yeah.
They're like, okay, well, we can't have a guy, be inspired by a comic book because that makes it look like he's a fictional character. And that makes it look like all the other stuff we said was just not real at all. Oh, but there's a multiverse. In this universe, the guy was a real guy, and this one, he's just a comic book character, and that's how multiverses got created, just to try to, like, aggregate all these, like, conflicting storylines.
How do we cover the bullshit that we came up with?
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. It's like, oh, man, we got to come up with some explanation for why we have 15 different lines of comic books that don't make any sense when you look at them together.
We should have really done a vision board of some sort before we started writing this.
Right. They needed some sort of, what do they call the person? The continuity. They needed a continuity editor in comic books, apparently. But now instead you get Spider-Man with 3 Spider-Man.
Yeah, I keep seeing people talking about it. Yeah, rumor has it this and that. I'm just like, wait, so Iron Man saved everyone, but now there's a different Iron Man, and it might be Tom Cruise, who they wanted originally to be Iron Man? Well, it's Iron Man from a different universe. I'm like, oh.
I'm Iron Man from a different universe, I mean, come on. Yeah.
Very confusing.
Yeah.
You hear that, nerds? Do you hear it? So I aggressively I attack.
So 5 of your vacations were canceled. Do you have anything on the books now?
I don't know if it was exactly 5, but it was Japan at one point. I mean, we kept scheduling things.
Yeah.
So we had
kept thinking it's going to get better.
Yeah, we thought we were going to do a Caribbean cruise, and that got canceled. Then we were like, let's just keep it closer. Let's go to Texas. That got canceled. I mean, yeah. Then we had.
Have you gotten to go anywhere?
We went to Ohio.
Oh.
Yeah, we went to Ohio. My son is big into roller coasters. He's like a huge, what they call enthusiast.
Sandusky or wherever it is.
We did. Went to Sandusky.
Cedar Point?
Yep, Cedar Point. And Kings Island. Kings Island, I thought was the better park overall.
Nice.
But, so we rode some crazy coasters, and it was fun. But, yeah, that's really the biggest place we've been.
We took we went to, actually, Estes Park last summer.
Okay.
Like, right before Delta got huge.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people really started talking about it while we were there, and I was thankful because had it been another week, I think my wife would have been like, we can't go. There's this Delta.
Yeah.
But we were already on our way there when it really started. People saying, yeah, it's already here in America.
Yeah.
I'm just like, that's not going to affect us. And it didn't, but it was, I was happy that we were going somewhere where we were going to spend most of our time outdoors.
I'm glad you're up in Estes Park because I actually just recently was trying to convince my wife. I'm like, Colorado's a fun place to go. We could spend a week there.
Great.
She's like, you can't spend a week in Colorado. I'm like, no, you can. Like,
easily.
I'm like, Estes Park, Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
Like, there's Denver. There's lots to do there. There's a Meow Wolf there now,
Yeah, my sister lives in Fort Collins. She went to Colorado State, and her and her husband live there now. And
Colorado State. So I mean, Fort Collins was fine. It's like the most white. At one point, I was at a party there, and I had been living there for about like 6-7 months. And she's like, she was a Hispanic woman. And she's like, hey, I'm like, there's too many white people here.
There's a lot.
I gotta get out of here, man. I said,
it's like Wyoming runoff is what it felt like.
Yeah, and it's like, and that's the thing is you realize it from like weird things. Like when I first got there, like in the first couple of weeks I was there, I was trying to find a donut shop, and they're like, oh, we don't have any donut shops in town. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have any donut shops in town?
Yeah, that's weird.
Then I realized it's because they don't have any Asians in town. There's not a single Asian person that lives in Fort Collins, and so it's like, oh, well, that's why there's not donut shops. It's like
I had no idea when I moved to LA. Every donut shop I went to, I'm like, why do Asian people own all the donut shops?
Yeah,
and then someone was like,
"Here's a documentary about that."
Yeah,
but I haven't watched it. But yeah, that's
someone explained that they got some tax break or something as part of payment or payback for internment camps, and
oh really? Oh, okay,
that was like how it started originally, and then basically a family started doing it, and then there became lots of them. But it's very white in Colorado.
It's very white.
Is Fort Collins a religious area?
No, not really. No. It's a college town. Like it's
like 30 minutes north of Boulder 40
Okay.
minutes, something like that. It's less than an hour, I think. From
Yeah,
Boulder,
Boulder's
so.
kind of the other way. So if you're going Denver, you go west to go into Boulder, and it's kind of up the mountains a bit. And then Fort Collins is like a straight shot. Because the weird thing about Colorado is that I didn't realize this until I moved there is that like where the Rockies end, then it just becomes the plains. So
It's just it's
so
basically
Fort,
Kansas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Fort Collins is like right on the border between gorgeous mountains and nothing.
Yeah.
Got it.
And
Front
so,
range.
Right. Being a sales rep there was weird. So my job with Coca-Cola was to go around to different places, and if they were Pepsi, you try to switch them to Coke. If they were Coke, try to get them to sell more Coke. And
Bury those RC Cola fuckers.
Right, exactly.
There has to be some.
And so one of the places that was on my list I was supposed to go to was the strip club in town. There's Fort Collins is a strip club.
Wow.
And so I go there and like during the day, and I was like, hey, can I talk to the manager? Like, yeah, he's go talk to him in his office. So I go in his office, and like while we're talking, I'm trying to convince him to switch from Pepsi to Coke. And a girl comes in. She goes, "Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt, but can I ask you a question?" Like to her boss, and he's like, "Not unless you're naked." And she goes, "Okay." And she like flips her top up. I'm like, what a weird place to work, man.
Just
like,
normal business.
normal
around
business
here.
around here. Just like, yep.
So weird.
Must flash to get questions answered.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. I went to Fort Collins when I lived in Estes Park because we were out of weed, and someone said, my friend lives in Fort Collins. You can go down there and get weed. Her uncle sells it. I'm just like, all right, so we got to contact your friend that we don't know, and then she's going to contact her uncle that we don't know.
Right.
So,
sounds like a great plan.
Yeah. But we got desperate, and we said, all right, we had a contact in Boulder, but he was out of town for a few weeks or something. And
Remember the
we
good old
needed-
days of
yeah.
having to
We had
have
to
like
know
a
people.
dealer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was literally like legitimately we told someone we couldn't find weed, and they were like, oh, you can contact my friend. And we're like, cool. Yeah, we're kind of friends with Dave. What's his last name? I don't know. Dave, who works in the same resort as me in Estes Park. Oh, Dave. Yeah.
That Dave.
And then
So-
he referred you to someone else.
Yeah. And then so this is
It's like a game of telephone.
yeah, this is like 4 degrees of separation
Yeah.
from the drug
Yeah.
dealer at least.
Oof.
And so we're driving down the street, and we're like looking for the address, and I'm like, as long as it's not the greenhouse. And then as we get closer, I'm like, fuck, it's the greenhouse. So we pull up, and they're all like kind of ranch style houses, not big, but nice enough. This house looks like it should be condemned.
Mm-hmm.
And we walk up, and the front door is like half off the hinges. And I'm just
Oh,
like,
God.
oh, that's odd. And so I kind of knock on the screen door, and the guy comes over, and he's like, hey, are you friends with so-and-so? And I'm like, is that the person? Yeah, that's our friend. He's like, cool, come in. And he opens the screen door, and he's got 2 lazy eyes.
Oh no.
Oh,
Both
wow.
are just kind of like, and I'm like, what the fuck? He looks like a flounder. This is
Were they
fucking
working
crazy.
independently?
Yeah,
Just like,
yeah, both of them.
Right.
No focus on either one of them.
Wow.
And he's like, yeah, come in. I'll grab it for you. So we walk in. I look over. There's a TV on, and the bottom half of the TV doesn't work. It's just like snow on the bottom.
Yeah.
And then the top of it's like SpongeBob or something weird. And there's a little kid just sitting in a
Oh,
baby
no.
pool. There's got like 6 inches of water in it. There's just like
Oh my
probably a
gosh.
3-year-old or something. I'm like,
Wow.
and I look at my friend. He's just looking at me like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And the guy came back, and he's like, yeah, this is great stuff, man. Thanks for, thinking of us or whatever. I'm just like, we're buying drugs,
He's
man.
come
What are you
back
doing?"
again.
Business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So we bought the drugs, got a
I
bag.
like how you still finish it. Like, no,
Yeah.
this is not going to deter us.
Yeah,
3-year-olds.
we're already here.
I
This
mean,
is uncomfortable, but that kid's got to eat.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and this $60 might be the only thing that keeps the water in that pool clean.
$60. What? You got an eighth?
Yeah, we were buying an eighth
That
of
was
kind
cheap.
buds.
Cheap back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We I remember being like, the guy was like, you want, I forget how he phrased it. Do you want BCs or swag? And I'm like, what the fuck is BCs?
Yeah.
Like, we definitely want BCs. I just knew we didn't want swag.
Yeah.
And then he came
You
and
can
got
tell
it.
by the way
Yeah.
it sounds.
And I looked at him like, oh, nice, kind buds. And I remember thinking that was so great. And the guy's just looking at me like, bro, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it got us high as fuck for.
It'd be hilarious to the 3-year-olds and they're going, God, amateurs.
It's the same weed, you idiot. Whether you say BCs or swag, it's the same fucking bag, you morons. Yeah, and then we were very happy we never had to go back and support the mom and pop shop down in Fort Collins.
Yeah.
But all right, is there anything you want to promote? Any sort of
No, I would have promoted my band if we still had one, but sadly,
unfucking believable.
Yeah. So.
Is this the first press release that you guys are doing that the band is over?
I suppose so. Yeah.
Damn, you heard it here first.
I was expecting more media to show up. Frankly, Scott thought
understandable.
No offense to you.
No,
but
none taken.
I'm glad you care.
Yeah.
But no, that's pretty much it.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for being on.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Good time.
very cool. Sarah, is there anything you want to promote?
No.
You got anything going on? I can't believe you guys
really.
work for the same company.
Yeah, we found out we work for the same company.
We do, yeah.
That's so fucked.
Yeah.
It's a big company.
We're a big company. People ask me that all the time. They're like, oh, do you know so and so? I'm like, we have like 17,000 employees. I don't.
I know 14,000 of them, but your friend is not on that list.
Your friend's not part of the cool kids.
Yeah. All right. Well, keep listening. Check out Comedy Store podcast as well. Keep listening to this podcast. Recommend it to a friend. Burn it onto a cassette tape. Hand it out. If we can get any sort of mixtape buzz going,
Ooh, yeah.
that would be really good. I always said dual cassette is the only way to release a podcast now.
Yep.
Right.
The hip kids will think it's cool.
Yep.
If you have to burn a CD, that's fine. If you prefer video, Laserdisc. It's about making it eclectic and something that people in Los Feliz would be interested in being a part of. Once you get that going, it spreads from there like wildfire. So thanks for listening. Thanks for being here, Patrick. I appreciate it. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
And, we'll see you guys next time.
All right.
If you'd like to be a guest on our show, please DM Ingram Pod on Twitter. That's INGRAHAM Pod on Twitter. Special thanks to the Comedy Store and to Brian Rips for the dope-ass music.